I think Shakespeare had a special interest in transitional periods. 2/3 of the Roman plays are about the transition from the Roman Republic to the Empire. And Coriolanus is about the conditions that eventually led to that. Particularly striking is Antony and Cleopatra, where Antony voices several quotations from the Christian book of Revelation, strangely enough, which gives the impression that, as Hegel and Fustel de Coulanges argued, that the end of the Republic is also the cause of the coming of Christianity. And appropriately, Antony and Cleopatra uses the word melt more often than any other Shakespeare play. And it's about things that change into something utterly different somehow. The English history plays are about civil wars, the same preoccupation as Hobbes, but one could restate that by saying they're about the loss and recovery of political stability or legitimacy. Finally, there's been a lot of interest in Shakespeare's Italian play settings, which are almost as many as the English. In Richard II, the Duke of York makes fun of Richard for imitating Italian fashions. Perhaps the focus on Italy traces to the fact that Shakespeare, like other of his contemporaries, saw Italy as the center of change of the Renaissance. Now, all that is too general, and I turn to the specific plays. Richard II begins with the word old John of Gaunt, time-honored Lancaster. And lots of critics have recognized that it has a medieval character. It's hard for students from the Caucasus to read because it's full of long Latinate words. And the whole play is patterned by ritual. Even when Richard II loses the crown, as Harry Berger has pointed out, the only way he can do it is to undo himself by a reversal of the coronation ritual. So he tries to make everything ceremonial or ritual, and he can't depart from that. It's a world of high nobles, except for two gardeners who appear briefly and a groom who appears even more briefly at the end. Appropriately, the other characters are very shocked by Bolingbroke, the usurper, when he engages in what they call courtship to the common people. I think Shakespeare was, in this sense, a sociologist, that he was very interested in the relationship between social classes, which is an issue in all four of these plays. In Richard II, there is an apparently invincible hierarchy, with the king at the top, a king who embodies legitimate rule. He is the grandson of the earlier king. He's very splendid. He's handsome. He wears beautiful clothes from Italy. I mean, everything you would want in a king, but he is a tyrant. And perhaps these two things are legitimate. The core of the play is from Act 3, Scene 2 to Act 3, Scene 4. In Act 3, Scene 2, Richard returns from Ireland to find that the country has rebelled against him and that there's a lot of bad news. And he unfolds there his conception of his legitimacy as a king. And he thinks that poisonous toads and spiders will help him retain the kingship, that he is backed by the powers of the whole of nature and by God. As he famously says, "This earth shall have a feeling, and these stones prove armed soldiers, ere her native king shall falter under foul rebellion's arms." So, with that conception, ruling does not depend on the monarch, on his or her, if we take Elizabeth I, her political skills, her vigor, or her natural powers. That its kingship radiates from the king who somehow, one might say in modern jargon, channels the whole powers of the whole cosmos. Accordingly, Richard is very confident, as he puts it. So when this thief, this traitor Bolingbroke, shall see us rising on our throne the east, his treasons will sit blushing in his face, not able to endure the sight of day, but self-affrighted tremble at his sin. So, in other words, divine right's kingship is supposed to work because political legitimacy is self-enforcing, that it protects itself somehow. It's not absolutely senseless. I'm struck, in America at least, you often see criminals being led by the police to court and they cover their faces, right? Not able to endure the sight of day, they self-affrighted tremble at their sin. So legitimacy, which is something minimized by contemporary political science, it did not predict by any means the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was due to a problem of legitimacy. So legitimacy is tremendously powerful, and it's a theme of Shakespeare's, but it was not enough to save Richard, and I think is not enough for Shakespeare. That in my paper, which I hope you will get, there is a video link of Mark Rylance's very revolutionary interpretation of this scene, which is a wonderful, wonderful piece of acting. You really should see this video. It's on YouTube. Unfortunately, the whole thing is not. Because the king though told by wise counselors like O'Merle what to do, when he gets bad news, his confidence crumbles very, very quickly, and he oscillates back and forth between confidence and despair, finally ending in total despair, and that's the end. I mean, since he has lost hope, there's no way of holding on to the kingship.